You click submit. It's your third job application this week. You've rewritten the resume, matched the keywords, tailored every word to the posting. You double-check your inbox. Nothing. No confirmation, no rejection, just silence. You refresh the page. Again and again, still nothing. You wonder if the form even worked, if anyone's on the other side, if you're still on the map. And then, beneath the noise of your thoughts, another voice appears. A sharper one. Not anxious, not confused, just tired. It asks, is this just bad luck, or is the silence the system? That voice doesn't go away, because this isn't a glitch, it's a design. You're not in a crisis. There's no explosion, no fire, no act to break the day into before and after. Just buffering, just waiting, just 1,000 small deferrals that together start to feel like erasure. This is modern life, a hallway with no end, a door that never opens. And the creeping suspicion that you're not failing, you're being managed. They told us this was freedom, that we had choices, that the system worked as long as we did. So you show up, you perform, you try to stay visible. And yet, why do you feel like you're disappearing in full view? Kafka saw this world before it arrived, not with machines or media, but with waiting. Endless, passive, self-eroding waiting. He tells a story. A man arrives from the country seeking access to the lawn. A doorkeeper tells him, not now, so he waits for years, for his whole life. And just before he dies, he asks why no one else ever came. The doorkeeper leans in and says, this door was meant only for you, and now I'm going to close it. Kafka called it before the law. You might call it Monday. Because you've waited too, in queues that never move, in inboxes that never reply, in meetings that go nowhere, in systems that require your energy but offer no recognition. And here's what makes it all work. You've been trained not to scream, not to question, just to refresh. You don't rage, you scroll, you don't exit, you optimize, you don't quit, you improve your profile. And that's the brilliance of the design. You don't know you're inside a trap because it's made of tools you've been told are doors. Kafka once wrote, you are free and that is why you are lost. But maybe, just maybe, if you're starting to ask these questions, you're not lost. You're waking up, and waking up is dangerous because it's the first thing that doesn't serve the system. Here's the twist. Kafka didn't write about some future dystopia. He wrote about now before we knew what now would look like. He wasn't prophesying about machines. He was describing the slow machinery of compliance, the gears made from guilt, and the rules no one explains but everyone obeys. In the trial, a man named Joseph K. is arrested for a crime he doesn't understand. No charge, no law. Just a vague, omnipresent authority, and still he shows up, he complies. He explains himself to people who never ask the right questions. The longer he participates, the deeper he sinks. Not because the system tightens, but because he believes that if he keeps trying, he'll be understood. Sound familiar? Today, the judges are invisible, the charges are digital, and the sentence is silence. We work inside systems that require everything and return nothing. We feed platforms with our attention, our creativity, ourselves, hoping one more post, one more tweak, one more click might finally unlock the door. But what if the door isn't broken? What if it was never supposed to open? That's the genius of Kafka's world. The rules don't have to make sense. They just have to be there. So you spend your life reacting to them, and we've made them even more efficient because now you don't need someone to oppress you. You do it yourself. Byung-Chul Han calls this the achievement society, where the boss is gone, but you've internalized the pressure. You track your hours, your mood, your goals, you build your brand. You judge your worth by output. And when you burn out, you don't ask what's wrong with the system, you ask what's wrong with you. That's the modern trap. You don't rebel, you rebrand. You don't leave the court, you decorate your cage. And all the while the algorithm hums, not in malice, just in indifference. Because the system doesn't need to punish you. It only needs you to hope, to keep hoping, to keep trying, to keep waiting. It tells you success is just one more optimization away, but it never defines success, because the definition would end the game. Kafka didn't give us a map to escape. He gave us a mirror. And if you see yourself in it now, that's not failure. That's the first crack in the walls. Because you can't leave a trap you don't know you're in, but you can start by refusing to guard the door. And maybe that refusal, small, quiet, internal, is where the rebellion begins. You wake up already behind. Your eyes open and your chest tightens, slightly, quietly. Not from fear, from a low, constant hum of unfinished tasks and invisible expectations. You haven't even checked your phone yet, but you know something's waiting. Something always is. You scroll through unread emails, half-thought responses, lingering reminders. You feel the tension climb before your feet even touch the floor. And it's not that you're being forced, no one's yelling. There's no clocking in, no foreman barking orders. You're just expected to stay connected, expected to stay productive, expected to stay relevant. Not by someone else, by something in you. A voice you don't remember choosing, a whisper that says, if you stop, you'll fall behind. If you rest, you'll disappear. That voice is the software now. It doesn't punish, it optimizes you. This isn't burnout from overwork, this is psychic erosion from being watched by systems that don't speak, only measure. Kafka wrote about it a century ago, the experience of being judged without explanation. Of being seen by something that never tells you what it wants, only that you're not quite enough. But back then, the system was outside you, now it's internal. And worse, it's dressed as freedom. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls this the achievement society. A world where the master has vanished, but the whip remains held by the self. In this new regime, there is no external force keeping you on task, no boss, no judge. Only the need to be visible, to perform, to self-manage. You track your steps, you log your mood, you post your milestones, and then wait in silence for feedback that never really satisfies. And when it doesn't come, you don't rebel, you reflect. You say, I need to improve, I need to rebrand, I need to work on myself. This is the Kafka-esque horror of now. You are not imprisoned. You're empowered by a system that quietly taught you to extract from your own soul. It's easy to miss because everything looks fine. You're not locked in a cage. You're thriving. You have a flexible schedule. You chose this. But if you pause, if you listen closely, you'll hear the sound of yourself slowly vanishing into usefulness. And the worst part? You don't even know what it's all for. Kafka's hunger artist was a man who fasted in public. Not for spectacle, not for fame, but because he said he could never find food he liked. He sat in a cage, overlooked, slowly disappearing until no one even remembered he was there. When they finally asked why he kept fasting, he said, because I couldn't find anything I truly wanted to eat. And that line hits harder today than ever. Because maybe you're not burned out, maybe you're not unmotivated. Maybe you're just sane in a system that wants to measure your hunger but not your humanity. You're exhausted not from laziness but from performing in an arena where meaning has been replaced by metrics. You're tired because you're constantly visible, yet deeply unseen. You've done everything right, but the system you're in doesn't recognize effort, only output. And when that effort doesn't convert, you're taught to blame yourself. But what if the problem isn't you? What if the system is designed to keep you busy enough to not ask real questions? Like, why does it always feel like I'm almost succeeding? Why do I feel like I'm producing more but becoming less? When did I start calling my exhaustion ambition? This chapter of your life isn't a failure. It's the realization that the ladder you've been climbing doesn't lead anywhere. It's just suspended in air, in metrics, in attention. And the only way to escape it is to stop asking the machine for meaning and start asking yourself what you are actually hungry for in the first place. Because that hunger is still there. And unlike the system, it's honest. You stop not because you've won, not because you're ahead, not because the work is done. You stop because something inside you has gone very, very quiet. A silence deeper than fatigue, deeper than stress. It's the silence that arrives when you realize the ladder has no top. that no matter how fast you run, you're still in the hallway. And the door, the one you were promised, keeps moving further away. So you stop, no performance, no productivity, no post, and you expect something to break, the algorithm to punish you, the sky to fall, but nothing happens. The world moves on, the system doesn't crash. It doesn't even notice. And that's when it hits you. You were never being watched. Not really. You were just reflecting the gaze back at yourself over and over again. Kafka's character K spends an entire novel trying to reach the mysterious authority of the castle. He writes letters, he obeys rules. He asks questions no one can answer. And in the end, nothing is resolved. No one comes, nothing changes. Why? Because the castle wasn't an institution, it was a mirror. And K was the one refusing to look away. That's what modern life has perfected. It's made the mirror addictive. It rewards you just enough to keep you chasing. It reflects you back to yourself, filtered, optimized, flattened, until you forget what you looked like before the algorithm noticed you. Albert Camus called it lucidity. The moment you realize the absurdity isn't an error, it's the system. It will never validate you. It will never explain itself. It was never designed to. And that moment, that painful crystalline moment, is the beginning of your freedom. Not escape, not transcendence, just clarity. You stop seeking permission. You stop asking the mirror who you are. You stop feeding a machine that only recognizes your output, not your essence. And in that refusal, something stirs. You're not rejecting society. You're rejecting its invisible operating system, the one that turned your aliveness into a spreadsheet. You're not quitting life. You're quitting the quiet belief that life only matters if it's being witnessed, quantified, or approved. The rebellion isn't dramatic, it's silent. It's logging off without explanation. It's just writing something that won't go viral. It's choosing rest over relevance. It's remembering who you were before your value got monetized. The system doesn't collapse, it keeps running. But now you're not fuel for it. You're a ghost in its machine. Watching, thinking, creating on your own terms. And that's enough to change everything. Because seeing the system for what it is doesn't make you powerless. It makes you dangerous. Because now you know where not to look for meaning. There's a moment, not loud, not dramatic, when something inside you simply stops playing along. You've chased the metrics, you've refined the version of yourself that performs well. You've stayed busy enough to believe it all matters, but then something falters. Not your will, your belief. You look around and realize the system doesn't reward clarity. It rewards compliance. And suddenly clarity feels like an act of resistance. Kafka's characters don't scream, they don't run. They linger in quiet horror, tangled in invisible systems, trying to earn an explanation that never arrives. And when it doesn't come, they don't rage, they try harder. That's the real trap, not oppression, but hope. The hope that if you do everything right, the system will eventually see you, that you'll be understood, rewarded, chosen. But what if that hope is the leash? What if the most efficient way to keep someone small is not to break them, but to convince them they're one improvement away from being accepted? Kafka's The Trial shows us this. Joseph K. continues to defend himself in a court that never defines the crime. He participates because he believes it means something. He believes the process is leading somewhere, that the system has a purpose beyond itself. And in that belief, he vanishes. We do the same. We grind harder after the rejection. We revise our tone when no one responds. We adjust ourselves endlessly, thinking the system is rational when it's only recursive. This is how you disappear. Not all at once, but pixel by pixel, until you're performing a version of you that no longer remembers why it started. But then something happens. You stop expecting the system to make you whole. You stop asking the algorithm to confirm your worth. You stop offering your hope as currency. And what you're left with is lucidity, Camus said the rebel is the one who says no, not out of anger, but out of recognition that the system is absurd. But Kafka's rebel is quieter. He writes, "Hold fast to the diary from today on, write regularly, don't surrender. Even if no salvation should come, I want to be worthy of it every moment." Kafka didn't believe the system would save him, but he believed there was dignity in continuing to speak, even if no one was listening. That's what your awareness becomes, not an escape, but a refusal to be shaped by the absurd. Not an answer, but a restoration of the part of you that doesn't need to be justified. You are not a cog, you are not a case number. You are not a product of your productivity. You are the witness, and the moment you stop chasing their version of success, you become the author of your own. No system can contain that. No algorithm can optimize it. You don't need to be seen to be whole. You only need to see clearly and act from that clarity. That is power, and you've had it this whole time. You've been walking through the same hallway your whole life. The walls are smooth, the lights flicker, but they stay on. The doors look official, like they lead somewhere important. Each one whispers, "Keep going, you're almost there." But you're not, you never were. You knock, you wait, you optimize. You try, and still no answer until something finally shifts. Not the system, you. You turn around and you see it. Not a path, a pattern. The doors were never designed to open. The hallway was never designed to end. The trap was never meant to hold you in, just to keep you moving. Kafka knew this. That's why his characters don't fail by falling, they fail by waiting. Waiting for permission, for validation, for access, waiting for a system built without them to suddenly recognize them. But maybe Kafka's point wasn't despair. Maybe it was this: the system doesn't need to change for you to stop obeying it. He didn't give us an escape plan, he gave us a mirror. And the courage to look at it. Because the only way to exit the loop is to stop believing in its authority. Not with violence, with lucidity. You no longer need the algorithm to like you. You no longer need the court to name your crime. You no longer need the hallway to lead somewhere real. You know it now, it's not broken. It's functioning exactly as it's meant to keep you obedient through confusion. And so you stop, you don't quit life. You quit the story that told you to perform for meaning. You stop mistaking momentum for progress. You stop mistaking access for belonging. You stop mistaking performance for worth and what's left. Stillness, not failure. Awareness, and in that space you remember who you were before the systems taught you to forget. You write, you rest. You reclaim silence, not as surrender but as authorship. You realize you never needed the key, because there was no lock. Just mirrors, just doors that led to more waiting. Kafka shows us the trap, but he also shows us something else. That the moment you stop participating, the trap loses its shape. The power wasn't theirs, it was yours, and it still is. If this made something in you stir, don't scroll past it, leave a comment. Let someone else know they're not alone. This isn't just a video, it's a signal. And sometimes a single signal is enough to remind you the door was never real.